Hello, hello. Welcome, Lemonheads, to Lemon Live at 5. We're so glad that you are here. We have a lot to get to. I'm going to go right to it because I'm glad. Let me know where you're streaming from. I don't know if I'll get to read everybody's location, but we're glad that you're here. When we came to you this morning, we had breaking news concerning that police report detailing an alleged sexual assault committed by Trump Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. So we did that. But I thought that would be the biggest news of the day. And when I thought that, you know what, I was wrong, because this afternoon there was a bombshell coming out from Washington. Former Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz announcing that he is withdrawing from consideration as President-elect Donald Trump's nominee for Attorney General. This was less than an hour after he was contacted by my former colleagues at CNN for comment on new reporting of a second sexual encounter between Gaetz and an underage girl. Suffice it to say that Trump world is in chaos right now, but everyone else is breathing a sigh of relief because Gaetz is universally disliked in Washington. I've been telling people, they're saying that this is partisan. It is not partisan. It's partisan for the Republicans, because Republicans don't like Matt Gaetz. Democrats don't either. He is universally disliked, okay? So Gaetz's withdrawal is encouraging, not just because he won't have an alleged, we won't have an alleged, SA or just an alleged predator as the Attorney General, but because it has taken Trump about 2 weeks to squander really what some believe was a mandate, and to remind Americans of his staggering incompetence and his dysfunction. There's a lot of dysfunction going on in the party. So I said this was just moments after my former colleagues over at CNN had contacted, he was contacted by them for comment on new reporting of a second encounter between Gaetz and an underage girl. This is Paula Reed reporting on CNN. I want you to pay attention. It is very interesting, the timing here. Here it is.
This news came as you were about to publish some reporting about Matt Gaetz. You reached out to him for comment, and just before you were about to move forward with the story you were going to air with, you got this response from Gaetz announcing that he was withdrawing.
That's exactly right. We firmed up our reporting earlier today. I reached out to his team around 11:30 this morning. We made it clear that we would go with this news story at 12:30, and we offered them the opportunity to weigh in. And instead of getting a response or a comment, just about a minute before we were about to go live on CNN, he notified the world that he is withdrawing from consideration as Attorney General. And this news story is that the Ethics Committee was told of a second sexual encounter with a woman who was just 17 years old. Now, she told the woman who was just 17 at the time, she testified to the committee that this second sexual encounter, which has never been reported before, also included another adult woman. And I want to note that she testified about both sexual encounters, not only to the House Ethics Committee, but also in a civil deposition down in Florida, and that her testimony has been consistent. Now, the congressman, of course, was investigated by the Justice Department over these allegations. They did not charge him. I will also note that the adult woman who was allegedly part of this encounter has also denied that she had sex with the minor. But this was an important piece of reporting, because not only is it a second alleged sexual encounter with someone that was underage, it's also something that we didn't know before. I have covered the investigations into Congressman Gaetz for 4 years. We've broken so much news on the criminal investigation. We broke the news that he wasn't going to be charged. We've been following the House ethics probe. This was the first time that we had ever heard that the alleged underage victim said she had sex with him twice, and that the second encounter allegedly involved an adult woman. Incredibly significant piece of reporting, because it reminds people that the Ethics Committee has learned things that the public is not aware of. But when we reached out again, we did not get a statement. Instead, the world was informed that Gaetz will no longer be considered for Attorney General.
Don, you're muted.
That was my colleagues, my former colleagues over at CNN. Did you guys hear that? That was Paula Reed. A second encounter. And when she reached out to him moments later, he withdrew his name for the nomination. Guys, what on earth is going on? Can you imagine the craziness? Can you imagine what must be in that ethics report that Matt Gaetz and others don't want to come out. Can you imagine what's in that report? Because if there was anything, as I've been saying, that exonerates him or that paints him in a favorable light or that disproves these allegations, they would want this report out. And now Paula Reed over at the CNN is saying there is a new report of a second sexual encounter between Gaetz and an underage girl. Is this the person? How did this person ever get nominated to be the Attorney General of the United States? Why would Donald Trump ever consider having this person as the Attorney General of the United States? We have a guest. Let us know. Let me know when that guest is ready to join us and we can talk about it. Or we can bring him in. But I don't understand how it got this far. And he's not the only one. We're going to talk about Pete Hegseth because there's some new information as it relates to him too. But we'll get to that later because we have so much to talk about as it relates to Matt Gaetz. Okay? I want to go now.
We have Brian Shapiro here with us.
Oh, there's Brian now. Hi, Brian. How are you? Good to see you.
Sorry about showing up a little bit late, Don. My apologies. Thanks for the invite.
I appreciate it. So, look, as I understand, you have been talking to some conservatives. You talked to who'd you talk to? Matt Walsh.
So I spoke with Joe Walsh, and I spoke with Will Chamberlain, who, even though he wouldn't admit it, he's a pretty staunch conservative. So kind of both ends of the spectrum.
I want to hear from Chamberlain first. What does Chamberlain say about this? Because there are folks who are making excuses. There are people who are saying this is somehow a witch hunt. The reporting before you came on is that Paula Reed over at CNN was getting ready to file some reporting of an alleged second encounter with an underage girl that involved an adult as well. And all of a sudden, he withdraws his name. What did Chamberlain have to say about this? And explain to our folks who he is.
So Chamberlain is a guy who's been a staunch, I guess you could call him Trump supporter with a very large following on social media, works for a bunch of different right-wing entities. And, you know, he did exactly what Donald Trump did. He called it a witch hunt. That's the word that he used. And I expressed to him, if it's a witch hunt, then why not release the report? Why are so many Republicans afraid to have this report released? And you're right, there's more and more evidence coming out that this, in fact, did happen. But it seems like Chamberlain does what so many people on the MAGA right do. They deflect. They blame Democrats. They call it a witch hunt. And then I had Joe Walsh on the show, who was a staunch Republican, still is a Republican, but an anti-Trump supporter. And he said what I said. You know, we're all not surprised that Matt Gaetz stepped down, but he didn't do it because he put the country first. He did it because he doesn't want this report to become public.
Yeah. Brian Shapiro, radio host over at Pushing the Limits, and interesting show. You get your callers and your the conversations you have with them, really amazing.
Thank you.
So there is, again, one would have to wonder that, which I've been saying, Brian, how do we get to this point? And who would have? I believe that Trump has squandered what some believe was a mandate within just 2 weeks of being elected by nominating these people, because not only do we have Matt Gaetz, we also have Pete Hegseth, which I'm going to get to later. And then you have, what's her name? Linda McMahon, who was over at the WWE. And there are SA allegations there that they are alleging that she knew it was going on with children, or somehow, it happened under her watch and they didn't do enough about it. And so you have those. And then you have RFK Jr., old tapes of him calling Trump supporters rubes and akin to, talking about how ignorant they are, and comparing him to the most, I believe, hated figure in modern history, and that is none other than Hitler.
Yeah, he wouldn't be the first. Of course, his own vice president has called him the next American Adolf Hitler as well. Don't even get me started with Pete Hegseth. I talked about that a lot on the show today, too. Of course, more revelations in that police report from years ago. Here's my question to you, Don, and to all of your listeners. If you allege that you didn't do anything wrong and that the person who's claiming that you sexually assaulted is lying, then why would your first
essay on here?
Why would allegedly, why would your first reaction be to pay her off?
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty simple to me. If somebody did that to you or somebody did that to me, we would want to sue them for defamation. So that's
Right.
my first question.
Let's hold on him, right? Because I want to stick
Okay.
with Gaetz. And remember, we're on several
Sure.
different, we're streaming on several different platforms, and you cannot say that. You have to say SA.
Right.
The initials
Right.
are we will get demonetized, and also we will they may knock us off. We may get a strike. So I want to play now. This is a Democratic congressman saying that he still wants this ethics report released, and then I want to get your response to it. Here it is.
Representative, you got what you wanted. Gaetz will not be Attorney General. So tell us why you still want the world to see this ethics report.
So let me be very clear. The goal here was never to prevent Gaetz from becoming Attorney General, although it would have been hideously inappropriate if somebody with the allegations against Mr. Gaetz were to be the highest law enforcement official in the land. The Ethics Committee was prepared to release this report in July. The only reason they didn't vote to release it was because we had a scheduling change in the House that they went home. The Ethics Committee was then again supposed to do this last week, and we pushed for a letter when they had the additional delay. All of that precedes the Attorney General discussions. What we have right now is a situation where a member of the House of Representatives has allegedly committed acts of sexual misconduct, including paying for sex with at least one minor child. And no workplace would allow that information to be swept under the rug simply because someone resigned for office. It matters for the integrity of the law, it matters for the integrity of this House, and it matters for the respect that we expect the American people to give us, that those of us entrusted with this job will uphold the United
States. Okay, so I want you to pay close attention to this, Brian, because tell me if you understand where the anchors are going here. They seem to not understand why this report should be released. It's kind of mind-boggling to me, but watch, keep going, play it.
United States is a land where all are treated equally under the law.
Thank you, Congressman. I do understand that, but I'm going to press you on it a little bit. I get what you're saying, I think, but first there's a precedent. You know, one of the things about the Ethics Committee is they try to do their job without making it partisan, so the Congress and the public can trust what they do. And this feels a little partisan. You know, let's kick the guy on his way out. And what is the public policy reason? It's just so to reassure people that the Ethics Committee did its job and here's what they found?
Well, let's talk about precedent. In 2010, Eric Massa, Democrat from New York, was under ethics investigation for engaging in sexual misconduct with his staff. He resigned, claimed it was because of cancer, claimed it was because of a health concerned about a health care vote, and the House Ethics Committee continued their investigation. What would be partisan, and again, Eric Massa was a Democrat, what would be partisan is if we were to decide that the Ethics Committee does not complete their work only when it is a Republican who is alleged to have committed the misconduct. So there is precedent here, right? And it matters to the dignity of this institution. How do we go back and look the people who vote for us in the eye and say, we hold ourselves to the same standards we hold you if we don't complete this work?
Don, you're muted.
I thought it's Brian. Sorry, I keep hitting the button. Brian, have I lost my mind not understanding because it should be released, don't you think? Especially if you want to be the Attorney General of the United States. Now, I guess they're saying, look, he's not going to be it, so why release it?
Yeah.
But quite frankly, he resigned. Let me be clear here. He resigned from the 118th Congress. He was reelected to the 119th Congress. So technically, he didn't resign from that. Maybe Matt Gaetz will come back. Who knows? But what say you?
Well, it's pretty simple, Don. If Matt Gaetz was a Democrat, every Republican would want to see this report. This comes down to politics. I agree with you. You're not crazy. I believe it shouldn't matter whether you're a Republican or a Democrat. I don't care whether you're running for an assemblyman or a mayor or a congressman, or in this case, the AG. It doesn't matter. The public has the right to know. And from what I've heard from this woman's attorney and from what I've seen and his behavior, it's unbecoming. And why Republicans continue to defend him is beyond me. And I think it speaks volumes of Donald Trump's ability to make decisions and why he would even attempt to appoint this guy to begin with, number one. And number two, Matt Gaetz is out for himself. He doesn't want this report out. My understanding is this report is pretty damning. And I believe it will come out eventually. It needs to come out. And quite frankly, any of the Republicans out there that are trying to make sure that doesn't happen or hoping that that doesn't happen are cowards, because they all know who Matt Gaetz is. Many of them have said it in the past. They know who Matt Gaetz is, but yet they were still willing to bend the knee to Donald Trump and say, well, I trust Donald Trump's decision making. It's pathetic and it's embarrassing.
Yeah. Do you let us know in the comments? Do you guys think this report should be released? Do you believe this report should be released? Before I let you get out of here, and we'll dig a little bit deeper into Pete Hegseth after you leave. Do you think that Pete Hegseth, do you think he's still going to make it, considering this police report that came out that we're going to discuss a little bit later on? A woman in 2017, the police report who came out, the police report came out with some pretty damning information that goes into detail about an alleged event or assault that happened back in 2017 in a hotel room, and there were witnesses who apparently witnessed it.
And by the way, some CNN reporters tried to speak to this woman last week, and then she started crying, and then didn't respond, because I don't think she can, because I believe she's in some sort of non-disclosure agreement. Do I think that he's going to be the next defense secretary? I'd say 50-50, Don. I think Matt Gaetz had worse chances, and we all know how that played out. I think it's 50-50 at this point. I think it's not just this situation. I think it's other statements that he's made, his behavior with women in general. I believe that, saying that, and I talked about this on the air today, that women shouldn't be serving on the battlefield. I mean, are you kidding me? I just think he said some things that are very bizarre, misogynistic in nature. You look at the way he's lived his life, the infidelities. As far as this, listen, Don, we don't know what happened, if anything. We don't know for sure. It's important to note that. But what we do know is this man has a past, and he doesn't have the most credibility in the world. If he does make it through, I wouldn't be surprised. But I think it's a coin flip at this point, and we'll have to wait and see what happens here in the coming days. We do know he was asked about it earlier today, and he just said, listen, I was never charged with a crime. I was cleared. Okay, that's great. Why did you pay her off? That's all I'm asking. That's all I'm asking. I think it's a fair question. If in fact this isn't true, and we don't know, why did you pay her off? Why is that a normal reaction to somebody that didn't do anything wrong? I'm just asking the question.
Well, listen, you sound like the folks on the right who do that, especially Tucker Carlson. But there are reasons that, quite honestly, there are reasons that people do it. Sometimes they think it's a nuisance lawsuit that they're going to pay less than what the court costs will be. The other thing is that he may believe that it would affect his reputation, which is what he said, and that he would be immediately fired from Fox News without due process. That's what his attorney said as well. And where do you get your reputation back once you're accused of something like that? Go on.
The guy that's worried about his reputation, correct me if I'm wrong, is the same guy who cheated on his second wife with a woman that was a Fox executive at Fox News, who he had a child with when he was married to another woman. And this is the guy who's worried about his background. I mean, I find that to be quite interesting, if that's his claim or excuse or whatever he wants to use. Look at his history and the way he's treated women his entire life, and I think it speaks volumes. I don't know whether he did anything wrong here or not. What I do know is the way he's lived his life and the way he's treated women. The guy has a history very similar to some circumstances of Donald Trump and the cheating and the misogyny. I think they go hand in hand. I mean, I think Pete Hegseth and Donald Trump have a lot in common as far as personality characteristics.
Yeah. Brian Shapiro, radio host of Pushing the Limits. Brian, thank you. Brian, next time you come on, why don't you tell us how you really feel, okay? Thank you, Brian.
Thanks, Don. I love you, bud. Thanks for having me on.
Well, thank you. I'll see you soon.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, so that's Brian Shapiro speaking to the masses there on his radio show based out of Las Vegas. I'm getting some pretty interesting guests on to talk about it. So we're going to talk about Pete Hegseth. I want to go back to Matt Gaetz for a minute. This is also my former colleague, Dana Bash, over at CNN, speaking to Ronna McDaniel. Remember, Ronna McDaniel was head of the RNC, and then she got a job at NBC or MSNBC to be a commentator there. And then the whole place blew up and got upset about it. And they, I guess, fired her or bought out her contract or whatever it is. She's no longer on the air over there. But this is Ronna McDaniel. It's long. So we'll talk through it a little bit. I may not play the entire thing. Speaking about Matt Gaetz on CNN earlier. Watch this.
Republican National Committee Chair Ronna McDaniel. She ran the RNC during Trump's entire first term in office and for most of Joe Biden's presidency as well. Thank you so much for being here. I want to, before I get your reaction, read to you and to our viewers what Donald Trump just said. His reaction is as following. I greatly appreciate the recent efforts of Matt Gaetz in seeking approval to be Attorney General. He was doing very well, but at the same time did not want to be a distraction for the administration, for which he has much respect. Matt has a wonderful future, and I look forward to watching all of the great things he will do. What's your reaction to just, first of all, just the withdrawal?
I think the numbers weren't there. He came here, he met with senators, they started doing the math. It was becoming a distraction. This was dominating the news. We were seeing the drip, drip, drip. And he did what I think is the right thing. He put his loyalty to the president first. He said, I don't want to be a distraction to this administration and getting the work done that President Trump needs to get done, and I'm going to withdraw my name. And I think a lot of people agree with this decision.
You were around, and I'm sure you had encounters with Matt Gaetz as the chair of the party. Just kind of taking a step back, the idea that he made some enemies in the House where he served and the United States Senate. How did that play into this?
Yeah, I think it was hard for some of these senators and others. You know, he trolled them. He went after them. He wasn't going to win a congeniality contest. And then suddenly he's in a position where he's saying, I need your support and I need your vote. The one thing I can say about Matt Gaetz is he is unequivocally loyal to Donald Trump. And he always has been. He's been steadfast. And I think President Trump has said often the biggest mistake he felt he made in that first term was Jeff Sessions. I've heard him say it was my mistake 1 through 10. So this position is very important to him. And to have an attorney general who's going to be loyal, who's going to have his back, who's going to understand what President Trump wants to get done is critical. Matt Gaetz fit that mold, but he found himself in a position where he couldn't get the votes.
I want to broaden it out a little beyond Gaetz. Several of his picks have faced or are facing sexual assault or misconduct allegations. Pete Hegseth is dealing with this right now. RFK Jr.
All right, so let's pause this for a second. So she's going on to talk about Pete Hegseth and RFK Jr. and on. So back it up to when she starts to ask her the question. But again, if you listen to Ronna McDaniel, she'll tell you he wasn't going to win a Mr. Congeniality contest, which means that he had a, if you want to say, a rough bedside manner, that he was not kind, that he stirred up mess and controversy within the Congress, that he had a Speaker of the House, or at least in part, if not, I mean, it was his promotion. He wanted the Speaker, Kevin McCarthy out as Speaker of the House. And so he instigated this whole thing to get him out, and then won. And then Kevin McCarthy said the reason that he wasn't Speaker anymore, the reason that Matt Gaetz got this contingency of people to vote against him as the Speaker and to oust him is because he said that he would not, his words, he would not cover up him having relations with a 17-year-old. And he said that's why he wasn't Speaker of the House anymore. So this is Matt Gaetz, who people are defending. Some of you are in the comments are defending. Some of the MAGA folks are defending him, and even the releasing of the report. How is that possible? Now, that is one of his nominees, Donald Trump's nominees, just one. Dan is about to go on to talk about several others. And let's not forget Linda McMahon. We cannot let her off the hook, considering the allegations against her and her involvement or knowledge of apparently essay with underage folks in the WWE, in the organization that she was a leader in. Okay? So here's Dana discussing other folks, Pete Hegseth, RFK Jr., etc. Watch.
broaden it out a little beyond Gaetz. Several of his picks have faced or are facing sexual assault or misconduct allegations. Pete Hegseth is dealing with this right now. RFK Jr., one of his top allies, Elon Musk, was sued by former employees who claimed that they were fired for raising concerns about sexual harassment at his company, SpaceX. What do you make of that common thread?
You know, I think this is important to have a Senate. I mean, this is why they have to give advice and consent. And let's let the process play out. There's all these stories coming out. They haven't been.
He's not answering the question.
Any of these things. I think it's important for the senators to take this job very seriously. Also to give good advice to the president and to say, you need to go into these picks with eyes wide open and understand what damage they may do and what baggage they bring to this administration. I think they're going to do it in a very considerate way. They're going to do it privately. They're going to talk to the president privately. They don't want this playing out. But then on the flip side, they understand Donald Trump just
the question from Dana was, what do you make of this common thread? And she mentioned someone who doesn't have to be approved by senators. It's part of a blue ribbon panel. So the question for Ronna McDaniel, she's beating around the bush on this one. The question was, what do you make of this common thread of allegations like this from men who are in Donald Trump's orbit? And even one woman who is an appointee, at least an appointee hopeful, right? She wants to be he wants her to be head of the Department of Education. What do you make of these sorts of characters in the orbit of Donald Trump, in his inner circle? So she didn't say it is disturbing or whatever. I find it disturbing or fascinating, or I have no issue with them being in Donald Trump's orbit, innocent until proven guilty, or this all. She's not saying that. She's not answering the question. She's saying that's why it's important for the Senate to have the approval process. And that there are folks who can advise the president in the Senate. Now, do you think that Donald Trump is going to listen to any senators, any Congress people? You think he's going to listen to them? You think he's going to listen to anyone who is not? He's going to listen to the people who are around him. And he wants them to listen to him, which is why he picked those people. So I can listen to any senators. Back it up a little bit, please. And then let's go.
They're going to do it in a very considerate way. They're going to do it privately. They're going to talk to the president privately. They don't want this playing out. But then on the flip side, they understand Donald Trump just won huge. We probably wouldn't have the Senate without Donald Trump right now. And they want to make sure that they give the president the team that he wants to lead this country. He's not just trying to hit the ground running. He's running before he hits the ground. He wants to start day one getting the things done that he ran on. And he wants the people around him
that he get that people around him. The people, the team around him to have these sorts of allegations, this sort of character. Remember, the reason we have the Senate, he won big, making excuses, soft peddling. You guys can tell me if you think I'm wrong. Tell me in the comments if you think I'm wrong. Dana, continuing now to question.
Competitive with women in this election. And they helped secure his victory. He lost the female vote overall by 8 points, a smaller margin than in 2020. And so the question is, are you worried as somebody, I've talked to you many times about this, got to get women into the fold, into the GOP, both from the voter perspective and from the elected official perspective. Do you have concern based on that goal of yours that women will look at these picks and say, I voted for him to make the economy better, to make the price of eggs lower, to deal with immigration.
Dana,
I didn't vote for him
Dana,
for all these people who have
they don't
sexual
care.
assault allegations in his campaign.
They don't care. They know.
Women knew who he was campaigning with.
Thank you.
He was running with all of these
right.
people. He was doing rallies with them. I really do think voters are saying, we need you to fix this economy. He was elected on the economy. Those were the issues. We saw it. Women were facing it. And
So do these picks
I think as
undermine
long
that?
as he achieves his agenda, I don't think we'll be talking about the picks as long as these things get achieved and as
Okay,
long as
there we
he
go.
lowers taxes, gets regulation out
So
of the
it doesn't
way,
matter.
finds
Let's
ways
pause.
to
Okay,
help
great.
incomes.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Thank you for that. It doesn't matter. None of it matters. And by the way, when she says as long as he fixes it about, this was not about the price of eggs, okay? This is something much deeper that's happening in the country. Sure, there's some economic, of course, people do care about the economy. It wasn't just that. This is what I say when you say people overlook all of these things. Look at what Matt Gaetz does not want this report to come out. They knew who he was, says Malty. Go back to Malty. Sent to whoever that was before. There were a couple of them I want to read. They knew who he was from the start. It was never the economy, says multi-crafter. There's a couple before this, and I didn't want to interrupt the thing. If you can go back to those, because I appreciate what they were saying. I read them up on the screen. And of course they knew. And they didn't care. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Donna Savalos says, this is Ronna McDaniel. Of course she's going to evade. She was Trump's talking piece, part of the problem and not the solution. She wouldn't even go on CNN before, and now there she is. Anyone will take her. Very good point. And she's not the only one. There's also someone who ran for president. Now anyone will take her and will go on and say things, well, I warned you, here's what I think, whatever. No, and nobody cares. The MAGA folks don't care. The Republican Party does not care because they did not vote for her. And they don't want her. And they wanted Ronna McDaniel out as well. Nicole Miller says it wasn't about the damn eggs. And they did know who he was. So think about that. But he isn't going to help the economy, says Beth Baer. But think about this. Think about the allegations. And remember, this isn't Democrats leading. This isn't like they call lawfare. This is Republicans leading the charge against Matt Gaetz. They don't want him. In the investigation, Republicans aren't speaking out against this investigation into Matt Gaetz. I mean, Democrats aren't speaking out. It's the Republicans who are doing it. Luis Wheeler says this isn't about the economy. It's all about who and how to grab power. Yes. So, and then you have a police report with witnesses. Now, again, innocent until proven guilty. But does that mean that you should be the Attorney General and the Defense Secretary of the United States? And as Brian said, and we said earlier, we had one of the reporters who uncovered the police report on this morning. So if you did not see our Hot Topic show at 10 this morning, you missed it. We had the reporter on who uncovered this through a Freedom of Information Act, through a FOIA. So there was one for Pete Hegseth, then now there are two. There was one against Matt Gaetz, underage. Now there are two. Then he withdraws right after CNN calls him for a statement on the new allegation. Okay, it's true or it's not true. And once it's out there, if it's not true, then you fight for your political life. Once it's out there. Now, if you're trying to keep it squashed, okay, that's different, but it's out there already. And if you are innocent, then you say, look, I'm fighting this. This is bullshit. This is bullshit. Let's talk about Pete Hegseth now. Thank you, Ronna McDaniel. Talk about Pete Hegseth. This is Pete Hegseth now, who is, let me read about Pete Hegseth, okay? Before we go on. And also, I want to make sure that I got everything about Gaetz out, okay? So here we go. I'm going to read about Gaetz, and then we're going to go to Pete Hegseth. Matt Gaetz withdrew his candidacy to be President-elect Donald Trump's Attorney General after an SA, or a trafficking and drug use allegations, appeared to doom his confirmation. After meeting with Republican senators to discuss his nomination, Gaetz, a conservative firebrand from Florida, and a loyal Trump defender, wrote on social media, and I quote here, and that happened on Thursday, obviously today. I don't think we have a full screen of that one, but just let me tell you what he says. He says, "It is clear that my confirmation was unfairly becoming a distraction to the critical work of the Trump-Vance transition. Early reporting indicates that Gaetz had received word that at least four GOP senators were dead set against his AG bid. It's Susan Collins of Maine, Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, Mitch McConnell of Kentucky, Senator-elect John Curtis of Utah, who just replaced Mitt Romney. However, the truth is approximately half of the GOP conference was expected to vote against Gaetz. Did you hear that? For you folks who are saying that this is a Democratic witch hunt, half of the GOP conference, was expected to vote against Gaetz. The calls are coming from inside the House. This is not a Democratic witch hunt. Stop saying that every time there's a nomination or something and a president wants to nominate someone to a position, a Republican president, that Democrats come up with these sorts of allegations. These are Republicans who are against this. Stop trying to twist yourself in a pretzel to make excuses for Donald Trump. This was a bad pick. And even Republicans who are afraid of Donald Trump, afraid of the MAGA, afraid of not getting reelected, are saying we can't even stand for this. So why are you guys supporting it? Why are the MAGA folks making excuses for him? If the leaders in Washington who work with him don't even support him, why are you guys doing it? Are you brainwashed? Are you part of a cult? Do you believe everything that Donald Trump says regardless? Do you go along with everything that he says just because you feel like you have to for the cult leader? Where does Gaetz go from here? Technically, as I said, he could go back to the House of Representatives. And this is what people are positing, because while, yes, he resigned his seat in the current 118th Congress, he was just reelected to the 119th Congress, and you cannot resign from something that doesn't exist yet. Matt Gaetz could end up back in Congress. Pete Hegseth now. A newly released police report details how in 2017, a California woman told officers that Trump cabinet pick Pete Hegseth physically blocked her from leaving a hotel room, took her phone, and then SA'd her. The report is 22 pages long. It lays out the competing narratives of what happened in new detail, offers a graphic, disturbing look into the alleged actions of a man who may now, he's still in the running, become the Secretary of Defense. These are some of the key points in the police report, okay? It was first reported by a nurse, not an accuser, because she went to the hospital or went to seek treatment. The accuser suggested that she might have been drugged, giving her memory loss. Two other women at the event said that Hegseth placed a hand on their thighs and invited them up to his room. When asked by hotel staff to please stop making a scene, he screamed that he has freedom of speech. Now that sounds right. Think about how people have been saying freedom of speech, you're suppressing my freedom of speech and this is censorship, whatever. That's the first thing to come out, right? The alleged incident occurred in November of 2017, about 2 months after Hegseth's child was born to a Fox News producer, now his third wife. His second wife filed for divorce in October of 2017. This is the person that you guys are saying, hey, he served and he's whatever. And everybody's been saying he's not qualified. So beyond the qualifications, You don't care about character, especially when you're talking about the Secretary of Defense, when you're in charge of the defense of America. I believe the most important country in the world. And the defense of the world, the safety of the world. He was on Capitol Hill today because he had to go speak to some folks about his nomination. And here are reporters questioning him and some others about what happened. But here they are questioning him in the halls of Congress at the Capitol. Here it is.
Nothing for granted, and we welcome the
back it up, please. I want to get to the beginning.
We take absolutely nothing for granted, and we welcome the opportunity to talk to any senator that wants to talk to us.
Did you sexually assault a woman in Monterey, California?
I have, as far as the media is concerned, I'll keep this very simple. The matter was fully investigated, and I was completely cleared, and that's where I'm going to leave it. Thank you very much.
Okay, as far as the media is concerned, the matter was fully investigated, and I was completely cleared. By whom? By whom? Was it adjudicated? Was it in court? Michelle M says another creep. Was it in court? Where was it completely investigated? By whom? Who investigated it? Seriously, guys, if show me where it's always the media's fault, says IBD, and he's in the media. So someone in the media blaming the media. It was completely investigated, and he was found completely innocent. By whom? Terry Stork, thank you for your generous support of independent media, saying on our YT channel in the comments, it is horrifying to watch this nightmare play out. Trump turd is nominating people who worship power, money, and destroying others because they can. I am a multiple-time SA survivor. This is mind-numbing and yet anything but surprising. My heart aches for our nation. I'm sorry that happened to you, Terry Stork. And I appreciate your generous support. That's coming for us on our YT channel. TikTok, what do you think about this? He was found, well, I don't think the woman pressed charges because the report came from a nurse, I believe. Anyways, he ended up paying off the woman. He ended up paying her off for an undisclosed amount, and then she had a non-disclosure agreement. So that was him being questioned in the halls of Congress. This senators right now, the ones I said, others who were questioned in the halls of Congress, senators commenting on Hegseth's nomination. Here it is.
Let's see the full report. Let's understand the context and also understand from the prosecutor who chose not to move forward with it. Why?
Not just about the vetting process in particular. Don't you think the Trump team should have done a better vetting job?
Well, the more you do up front, the less you have to do on the back end.
I think this nomination is doomed. It should never have been made. It was never vetted.
And Dana, just moments ago, Pete Hegseth emerged in the hallways of the Capitol and spoke to reporters about these meetings and about these allegations and said, as far as the media is concerned, I'll keep this very simple. The matter was fully investigated and I was completely cleared. That's where I'm going to leave it. The question, though, is that enough to win over 51 senators, really 50 Republican senators, especially if Democrats plan to vote against this nomination? Big questions as he meets the Republicans today. And then, of course, we'll have his confirmation hearings early next year.
Okay, so again, it was completely investigated. Okay, where? Investigated. Come on, guys, help me out here. Do you guys see some investigation? Thank you, Sean Russell. I appreciate your support of independent media. It really means a lot. Our friend over at the Bulwark, Tim Miller. Tim Miller has a few things to say about Pete Hegseth and whether or not he will survive. He believed that Matt Gaetz won't. I think he may have taped this before Matt Gaetz pulled his name. But he believes that Pete Hegseth may end up being our defense secretary, that it is possible, even with these allegations and the police report. Tim Miller at the Bulwark, here it is.
Just to put it bluntly, the only reason why, like, the conventional wisdom in DC is that Matt Gaetz is going to be tough to get through and Hegseth is going to be easy to get through has nothing to do with their qualifications for the job, because they're equally unqualified. If anything, Gaetz might be more qualified, frankly. The only reason that that's the conventional wisdom is that Gaetz is mean to his colleagues and they don't like him personally, and Hegseth sucked up to them on Fox and Friends.
Totally.
The morning show. Like, that's literally the only difference.
Totally. I mean, an actual body of Congress run by, indeed, his own party has produced this report. You think it's kind of relevant to the decision these senators have to make. They need to insist on that, in my opinion. But the Gaetz defense, he realizes, it's not true that they were 17. They had just crossed, they were just 18. They were 18 years old. I mean, so what are we talking about here?
Sorry for partying, Bill.
That's Gaetz's defense. I mean, how disgusting is that?
Yeah. So there you go. And I'm so glad that he was smart enough to point out that this is a report produced by his own party. Thank you, Bonnie Homer, first gift. Thank you. Thank you, Jason Carney. I appreciate it. Thank you all for supporting independent media. Thank you, Luis Wheeler, as well, for supporting independent media, because we get to say things that folks can't. Mr. LLLL is living. Thank you for your support. It's being alleged that hashtag Opus Dei is the religion or background of Project 2025. Is that true, Lemon? I don't know about that, but I appreciate your support. I'm not sure. We have not investigated that, but interesting. Okay, so now let's go on to someone else who is involved in a controversy. Another nominee or appointee or hopeful from Donald Trump, RFK Jr. Now, this is the CNN K file has uncovered, I believe he's on a radio show. I think it's his radio show, RFK Jr. calling Trump supporters bootlickers and Nazis, and also calling him, let's see, a leader whose name begins with an H. And back it up. Make sure we get it from the very beginning, please, because sometimes we cut the top off. Here it is.
You know, one of the things that you write so beautifully, and your stuff is so fun to read, but you write about Trump. Quote, the way that you build a truly vicious nationalist movement is to wed a relatively small core of belligerent idiots to a much larger group of opportunists and spineless fellow travelers whose primary function is to turn a blind eye to things. We may not have that many outright Nazis in America, but we have plenty of cowards and bootlickers, and once those fleshy dominoes start tumbling into the Trump camp, the game is up. When you talk about fleshy dominoes, Chris Christie comes to mind.
Yeah, exactly.
There you go. That's RFK Jr. And now he's going to be, what, HHS secretary? I'm just saying now, and so it was him, and it was also the vice president-elect, J.D. Vance, who, again, those are the ones who are comparing him to that most unlike, despicable character, dictator, unaliver, mass unaliver in history. Yeah, bring the libs. It's the libs. It's the libs. No, it's his own. It's the own people. Again, the calls are coming from inside the house. The calls are coming from inside the house. Okay, this is someone else who I believe. I think this person. This is a. Thank you, Benita McNeil. Thank you for your support. This is a grifting, horrible person. Nancy Mace is the one who is now pushing this bill, this bathroom bill in Congress, because there is a new incoming transgender congresswoman who is coming in from Delaware, Sarah McBride. And somehow Nancy Mace is trying to grift off of this and chasing clout on the back of this transgender woman who has never spoken about what bathroom she wants to use in the Capitol or Is she going to push trans rights or any of the sort? And yet here comes Nancy Mace. Now I'm just going to tell you. So one person is being a class act and looking out for the American people. I want you to look at this. Is Sarah McBride being a class act and speaking to the people. Here it is.
Let's be clear. The party that was focused on culture wars, the party that was focused on trans people, was the Republican Party. It was Donald Trump. It was the $100 million, $200 million that they spent on television ads. But I want to be clear, I do not believe, from what I've seen in Delaware, that voters in my state were responding to those attacks. Delaware is in the Philadelphia media market, so we were seeing those ads that Donald Trump clearly prioritized and focused in with regard to the culture wars. What I was hearing from voters across the state of Delaware, my district is urban, suburban, and rural. It looks like America. And what I was hearing was not the ads that Donald Trump was putting on the air. What I was hearing from folks is the need to build an economy that works for everyone. What I was hearing was that the American dream is increasingly unaffordable and inaccessible. What I was hearing was that we need to guarantee affordable health care, housing, and child care for every person in this state and in this country. That's what I was hearing. That's what I was campaigning on. I didn't run on my identity, but my identity was not a secret. And in a state where 2/3 of the voters are in the Philadelphia media market, with a trans candidate on the ballot statewide, that candidate not only performed on par with other Democrats, but had the highest percentage of any Democrat running for major statewide office in Delaware this cycle. And so I think what we have to all recognize here is that when a politician tries to take an issue that impacts a handful of people in a handful of states and turn it into the most important issue in an election, everyone has to ask why. And the answer to that question is that Donald Trump was trying to divide and distract from the fact that he has absolutely no policy solutions for the issues that are actually keeping voters up at night, the issues that I was hearing about on the campaign trail. And I think we have to be crystal clear as we move forward that we are going to call out the hypocrisy of Donald Trump, of disingenuously claiming that he is a fighter for working people when his agenda is pro-higher cost.
So that is, I believe, a masterclass in messaging. Thank you, Rolana 59. Thanks, Don and your staff, for all that you do. Thank you. We appreciate you. And thank you, Alice MC, for the super sticker. Thank you for your support. Thank you, Birdie Treadwell, as well, for your support. So here's the thing. That is a masterclass in messaging. She said, look, I didn't bring up that issue. It was Donald Trump and the Republicans who are bringing up that issue. I am here to fight for the American people to make their lives easier. Very smart. Pivoted to that. This is what Nancy Mace is doing when I say she's being disgusting and chasing clout. This is what she's putting up. She's tweeting about her because she thinks this issue is making her famous and that somehow it's going to resonate with the MAGA folks. Here's her tweet, the wine. Okay, that's her. A woman being bullied for, wait for it, protecting women is the height of gaslighting. I'll drink your tears and my Pinot Noir tonight. Pinot Noir tonight. Cheers. Wow. That's good for you. You're such a big person. Also a tweet, an image of her. This is an AI image of Nancy Mace. I believe it's in front of the Capitol, in front of the women's restroom. Sorry, I thought it was in the Capitol. Her in armor. It's AI. Accurate, she says. Okay. Glad that she's, doesn't have an ego. She's not tooting her own horn. And then Nancy Mace tweeted out about how she supports what she supports. Here it is. I hate to put this up, but you need to know this. I strongly support LGBTQ rights. No one should be discriminated against. Religious liberty, gay rights, and transgender equality can all coexist. I'm also a constitutionalist. We have to ensure anti-discrimination laws don't violate religious freedom. Okay, whatever. She's like, woo, I got something that's real big and it's going to catapult me back into the media and everybody's going to see me and, I'm going to be this, whatever. In the meantime, Let's listen to AOC, who explains why Mace is a danger to women and girls. Here it is.
Nancy Mace and what Speaker Johnson are doing are endangering all.
Back it up, please. We cut off the top again.
What Nancy Mace and what Speaker Johnson are doing are endangering all women and girls. Because if you ask them, what is your plan on how to enforce this? They won't come up with an answer. And what it inevitably results in are women and girls who are primed for assault because people are going to want to check their private parts in suspecting who is trans and who is cis and who's doing what. And so the idea that Nancy Mace wants little girls and women to drop trow in front of who? An investigator? Who would that be? In order, because she wants to suspect and point fingers at who she thinks is trans is disgusting. It is disgusting. And frankly, all it does is allow these Republicans to go around and bully any woman who isn't wearing a skirt because they think she might not look woman enough. People have a right to express themselves, to dress how they want, and to be who they are. And if a woman doesn't look woman enough to a Republican, they want to be able to inspect her genitals to use a bathroom. It's disgusting. And everybody, no matter how you feel on this issue, should reject it completely. What are they doing? They're doing this so that Nancy Mace can make a buck and send a text and fundraise off an email. They're not doing this to protect people. They're endangering women. They're endangering girls of all kinds. And everybody should reject it. It's gross. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow, AOC. Bravo, bravo, AOC. It is disgusting because, again, this is not an issue. It's not an issue because in most communities and towns and cities across America, guess what? Zero. Zero interaction, zero issues with trans people. But yet they've been riled up and fired up. Oh my gosh, this is the worst danger to society. Out of the hundreds of Congress people in Washington, there is one transgender member. And there are gender neutral bathrooms, there are single bathrooms, there are bathrooms in offices. And this is not an issue. Well, it is an issue, but it is not a problem, I should say. It is a solution looking for a problem, is what it is. A solution looking for a problem. So this is where we are. So Nancy Mace, you know what? Get your shit together and start fighting for the people. And maybe like in the beginning when you first came out and people were like, oh, this is someone who is a Republican and seems to be a pretty normal person and it's going to fight against the bullshit in Washington. And then you became one of them, if not worse. Because you saw the Klieg lights and the spotlight that Washington can offer clowns, hyperbolists, people who do things just for the attention. You became part of the Matt Gaetz, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and now Nancy Mace sideshows, circus. All right, guys, make sure you hit the thumbs up, please. We need that for the algorithm, and we also need you to subscribe. It is free. You can subscribe to our channel. It doesn't cost you anything, and we're trying to build a community here. And if you're following us on the other platforms, make sure you follow us, check out our content on social media, and check us out on YouTube, check us out on TikTok. We're live on TikTok right now, so I am so grateful that you're here helping us build this. And I got to get out of here because I have to go. I have something to go to, and I'm taping an interview, which you will see later. Okay. So thank you. We're getting close to Thanksgiving. You guys ready? Are you preparing your turkey yet or your menu yet? It's kind of early to prepare the turkey, right? Is it too early to like start basting and put? Yeah, it's a little early. By the way, we're going to have that discussion. What is the difference? Like, what is your choice? Is it stuffing or dressing? I'm a dressing person. Do you actually like the cranberries as well? All right, guys, we'll talk more. Appreciate you. I'll make sure you hit the likes and everything on the way out, and we'll see you soon. Thanks. Thanks for watching, everyone. Make sure you hit the like button. It helps us with the algorithm. And also, we'd love for you to become a subscriber. So hit that button, too. We're live every day at 10 a.m. Eastern Time and 5 p.m. Eastern, so there's plenty of content for you to check